Welcome to Class 3 of our Spiritual Science, Essential Teachings and Practices online course. For the teaching section of Class 3, we're going to be building on what we did in Class 1, where we presented the foundations of creating a modern spiritual science and the modern path of independent spiritual initiation. And then in Class 2, where we presented fundamental information that is essential for initiation regarding different systems of the human subtle bodies as taught in Eastern and Western traditions, as well as the anchor points within the body of these subtle bodies. These particular anchor points are locations used in most great spiritual traditions for activating faculties of higher consciousness and for certain alchemical energetic changes within the human physical and subtle bodies. So here in Class 3, for our teachings, we are going to be now moving into the next piece of the puzzle regarding initiation, which is particular initiation systems taught in, for our case today, in India and in Europe. And so to begin with, let's take a look at the basic concept of initiation itself. We started out back in Class 1 giving a very simple definition of initiation as being a process for the expansion of human consciousness and for moving human spiritual evolution toward its next stage. But we need to be aware that the term initiation is used by many different people in the modern day with a wide variety of different meanings. And so part of being a modern spiritual scientist and being able to learn from multiple teachers and multiple traditions is being able to determine what people mean by the use of certain terms. So we're going to take a look now at some of the common attributions given to the term initiation. I'm going to start with a little story, and that is a number of years ago, a friend of mine mentioned to me about having attended a Tibetan Buddhist initiation ceremony. And there were a large number of people at this particular ceremony. Members of the public were there, as well as people who were part of that particular initiation lineage, who'd made a commitment to that lineage. And the Lama who was doing the ceremony made a statement along the lines of, everyone who is here will receive this particular initiation and empowerment. However, only 3 people here will receive this initiation and empowerment. Now, of course, that was somewhat confusing to some of the people that were in the audience, but what was meant by that is there is one particular level of the initiation and the empowerment that is given out and transmitted in the general space by the person doing this type of work from a great tradition that is intended for the general public and has a general type of effect. And that's different from the specific type of initiation and empowerment that goes to people that have linked their own karma to that tradition or that particular lineage. So we need to bear that in mind. So that today we hear a lot about people having gone to different ceremonies and receiving all these initiations. There's something very different about receiving an initiation as a committed member of a lineage versus just what you get as a member of the public going to some type of public event or a public ceremony. So we're going to touch on that again in just a moment, but I wanted to set the stage with that. One of the first meanings that we have when we deal with the question of what does initiation mean in the mind of different people that use the term is that it will mean to receive a particular secret teaching or some particular part of hidden knowledge. And in this case, what they mean by it is a very specific type of hidden knowledge. One particular secret teaching is what they have in mind. In other cases, when they talk about initiation, what they have in mind is a more general thing, which is that the initiation is achieving a general, higher level of conscious understanding of spiritual realities and processes that are unknown by the average person. So this is really our first meaning then. It can mean either a very specific secret teaching or just in general, having attained a higher level of understanding of spiritual realities beyond what the normal person has today. Now, the second meaning of initiation, and a very common one today, is that it is a transmission of spiritual energy from a particular teacher or a tradition to an individual. Now, this idea that a person has received a transmission as some type of spiritual energy transmission is something that in many teachings today is very ill-defined and somewhat of a vague concept. Some type of spiritual energy has been transmitted by the initiator to the initiated, but they're not really clear exactly what kind of energy it was, where in the person's energy field has been the recipient of the energetic connection, what the specific purpose of that particular spiritual energy is. Often that's left quite vague. In other traditions, it can be quite precise, particularly in some advanced aspects of the Indian and Himalayan tradition, as well as some other traditions. Then they might be able to be more specific about it, that this particular teacher has transmitted to this student a particular spiritual energy that carries the ability of awakening in the person a particular latent power that's in the person's energetic field. It may be activating a particular chakra or other energy center in the person's body, and it may be giving rise to a very specific type of spiritual power, or what they call in India a siddha. These particular types of spiritual powers then are what is the intent of the spiritual energetic transmission. And again, they can be clear about exactly what the purpose of it is, what the spiritual energy itself is, and where in the human energy system it is being received or is being activated by the transmission. Now, one of the most common forms of energetic transmission that's discussed in modern metaphysical circles comes with the idea from India of Shaktipat. Shaktipat is basically, once again, an energetic transmission of Shakti. Shakti being the moving force of the divine, or the moving force of God in the Indian tradition. Now, one of the particular forms of Shaktipat that's very common amongst Indian initiation groups is the Shaktipat that is linked to awakening Kundalini in a person's energy body. Kundalini is the latent energy that is present at the base of the human spine. And as a major part of the Himalayan and other great traditions of the planet, this latent energy at the base of the spine can be awakened. It will rise up the spine and then move upward to activate the very powerful and very important energy centers in the human head. And so this is a very common form of energetic transmission, to awaken specifically the Kundalini energy. Now, we need to be aware that this type of energetic transmission does not only happen from one human being representing a particular tradition or lineage to another human being, a teacher to a student. It can also be a direct transmission from a spiritual being to a person being initiated. It doesn't have to go through a human being, although it may, and in many cases it is. A spiritual being can directly transmit an energy to a location in a person's energy field to activate a particular latent power, or to activate certain faculties of consciousness that were not fully enlivened before that time. Now, the next thing that we need to be aware of is that these types of energy transmissions, there is no particular guarantee that this transmission of the energy is going to have integrity or will be desirable just because the energy has been transmitted. The integrity and desirability of the transmission is going to depend upon the person or the tradition that is doing the transmission. And so there are teachers who are capable of giving all types of energetic transmissions that may not be entirely beneficial for the people receiving them. This is particularly true once you get out of some of the great lineage traditions and into people acting independently. It's quite possible that what a person is saying that they're doing as a type of Shaktipat activation is actually attaching a type of energetic cord to a person's energy field or to a particular energetic center in a person's field in order to, in some way, manipulate them or to extract energy from them. Now, I'm not saying this so that we have any type of fear-based reaction to understanding higher spiritual principles, but being a spiritual scientist means that we understand how things work and that we're not born yesterday. We understand all the different possibilities for the activities that are possible on a spiritual or energetic level. So we need to have discernment about who we want to receive these types of energetic transmissions from, to have confidence in their integrity and what is being transmitted. Now, I'll give you one particular example. And when I give you examples that talk about particular teachers or traditions, it's not to create any type of unnecessary conflict between one group and another group. It's simply to illustrate the things that we need to know on the modern path of independent spiritual initiation, so that we are wise about who we're interacting with and what the results of this will be.